Hey everyone, so super excited for this one. We're here with Madlain, who's one of our long-standing clients. And Madlain has had an absolutely epic journey. We wanted to celebrate it with you all and also share lots of insights and tips to hopefully help you along your way with your own weight loss and wellness journeys. So if you're watching this live, please hashtag live so we know who's watching it. And if you're watching replay, hashtag replay. And yeah, let's get started, Madlain. So
Right.
perhaps you could just introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So my name is Madlain. I am from San Diego. I was born and raised in San Diego. Um, and it's always such a hard question of like, who are you? And
It's
like,
very open-ended, isn't it?
I know it's like, how deep do you want to go? So I was born and raised in San Diego. My parents immigrated from Iraq in the late 70s. So I'm a first generation American. And I was raised in a very small community. Out here, and yeah, so it's been such a long journey. I don't know where to start.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
and you let's start. So you were in a convent, right? You were a nun
I
for a period
was.
of time. So
I was.
tell us about that part of your life.
So I entered the convent when I was 20 years old. I discerned a vocation when I was 18. Decided I wanted to do it at 19, and kind of jumped in at 20. And I was there for almost 10 years. We were a small, I'm Eastern Rite Catholic, so we were a small community. At our biggest, there were 7 of us. At our smallest, there was, well, while I was there was 3 of us. But at the end of it, there was 4. So um, I had a sick parent growing up, and my dad passed when I was 17. And it kind of led me into this like downward spiral, I guess you could say. His whole sickness kind of led me into the spiral of contemplating life at a very young age and mortality at a very young age. And so I developed different coping mechanisms. Some, I would say, some healthy and some not healthy, but the reality was they were all unhealthy because I was coping with the ways that I was shown by media and TV and things like that. And so I we lost him when I was 17, and so it kind of led my anxiety and depression to deepen. And I was looking for something outside of this world, so to speak. And so I was raised Catholic. I went to Catholic school. I taught catechism, but it wasn't until I really lost him, and he was such a faithful man, that it kind of led me deeper. So I discerned a vocation. I entered the convent when I was 20, and I was there for almost 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that I can really relate, Madlain, in some respects. In others, I can't even imagine, because as some of you will know, I lost my father 4 months ago, and I'm nearly 40 years old. And, the emotions and everything I'm experiencing now, I've grown so much as a person since I was 17. So to have to go through something like that at that young age is it's a trauma. It's a big trauma, isn't it? And yeah. So
and it was hard. I'm the youngest of 5, so I have 4 older brothers, and it's funny because we all handle, and it makes sense, everyone handles death and trauma differently. And so it was funny in an ironic way, because and it makes sense, we were just disconnected for a while because of it, because we're all coping in our own ways. No, like, shame on anybody. When you go through something like that, you find a way to self-soothe, and you find a way to kind of take care of yourself. And for me, a big part of that was binge eating and overeating and things like that. And so I entered the convent. I'm no longer in the convent. Unfortunately, my convent closed back in January of 2019 for different reasons. So I haven't been in the convent for almost 2 years, which is crazy to think about, that it's already been that long. But yeah, but I was there for 10 years.
Wow. And then, so after the convent, where did life take you?
Another open-ended question. After the convent, so there's different stages of the convent. There's different levels of vows and promises that you make. I had completed all of them. So I had made my final profession. It would be like, a comparison would be like, as if I got married. And I had, promised forever, this is what I want to do. And then that wasn't an option anymore. So that kind of led to my anxiety, my depression getting deeper. It's always something I've struggled with. I've sought help for. I'm seeking help for, but it's been one of those things that it took a lot. It was, my entire life completely flipped upside down, and so I wasn't in a very good place. I went on a very impromptu pilgrimage, which was amazing, and it was, if you can manage it, 10 out of 10 recommend. It was through Rome and Jerusalem, and it was just what I needed. Yeah, and it was nice while I was gone, but when I came back to my issues, and I came back to the same stuff I was struggling with.
Back to reality, right?
Back to reality. I had to continue facing it. And so I was teaching at the time, taught middle school for 2 years. I was teaching at the time, and I was very thankful I had that job because the kids really were the reason I was getting out of bed. It was, I had a duty to them, and I had to go, and they needed me to be, Miss Arabo, and excited about teaching them science and eventually math. And, but I'd always been used to like putting on this face of like, everything's okay and everything is fine. It was another coping mechanism I developed since I was young. And so one day I was doing my work at a coffee shop because for some reason I cannot work at home. If I'm working or studying at home, nothing will get done. I'm going to watch Netflix. I'm going to cook something. I will find anything and everything to do, reorganize my closet. I don't know. So I was doing my work at a coffee shop one day, and I was very much just agitated, like internally. I hadn't been working out since before we found out the convent was closing. So maybe 6 to 8 months, I hadn't done one workout. I had not moved my body. I was eating garbage. And so one of my best friends was at the time, she's one of the sisters with me in the convent, was telling me, she's like, you should find a workout you like doing again. And at the time I told her, I was like, what are you talking? Like, I'm not going to do anything. I don't want to do anything. And she told me, she's like, you used to do kickboxing videos. Like, why don't you try that? And I told her I can't do it at home just because of, my mental state. I can't do anything at home productive. And she told me, she's like, go find a class, try to find a class and try it. It's not going to hurt. And so I was doing my work at this coffee shop, and I look over, and in the same shopping center is this Brazilian jiu-jitsu gym that had a sign for kickboxing. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I never noticed it there before because I used to go to this coffee shop a lot. And I looked into it. I reached out. The owner reached back. He was really sweet. We set an appointment for me to go meet him, and I signed up that day. And
this is great, Madlain, because I do martial arts. I've trained Thai boxing, MMA, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I've trained in many clubs all over the world. And even having trained for years, it takes guts to walk into a new boxing gym, martial arts gym. They can be quite intimidating places, and I'm very familiar with them. So for you, as a first time, how are you feeling just walking into like an MMA Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym to like start and potentially sign up?
I had no idea what I was getting into. I thought like, and it was funny because I knew other gyms in my area, but there was something about this place. It was kind of like in the middle, not in the middle of nowhere, but like almost like this little hidden gem. Not a lot of people no one I knew knew about this place. And at the time, because I was in the convent for so long and serving the community I grew up in, a lot of people know me. And, that's a big deal. And when, the convent closing, so I didn't feel like talking about it. I wanted to just go where no one knew who I was, where no one knew what was going on, to just work out. I don't want to answer questions. I just want to have a little bit of peace because that's what I was really seeking. And so I walked in. Thankfully, I didn't walk into like a class the first day. I just walked in and met him, met the owner, and he was so kind. And I shared a little bit about my story, and he signed me up. And I signed up completely thinking it's a cardio kickboxing class. Show up that night for my first class because it happened to be that night. And the coach, I'm going to do a shout out to Aaron Pete, who is uh, a gem of a human being. Aaron asked me, I was introduced to him, and everyone was already in pairs. It was even, and I made it odd. So he kind of took me to the side and assessed. But he asked me, he was like, "Hey, so do you have boxing gloves?" And I looked at him like, "No, why? Why would I need boxing gloves? It's a kick. Like, are we actually going to hit things?" I didn't ask that, but in my head, I was so like confused. And so he gave me loaner gloves to try on, and he held mitts for me essentially. And I think it was more like an assessment to kind of see where I was at, which was super encouraging because, and the whole time he's like, he's calling out combination numbers. He's like, all right, 1, 2, 3, front kick or whatever. And I'm standing there like, it's another language. I had no idea what was going on.
I love it.
It was amazing. It was
cool.
So great.
Respect, and so, Madlain, respect. And that's a big part of your life now, right? The boxing.
It's everything.
How many times a week do you train?
5 to 6.
And how long's each session?
So it should be an hour, but it tends to go to like an hour and a half.
And
so it's about an hour and a half.
Amazing. And you're like co-coaching, you're like training other people as well?
Yeah, it's crazy because
I love your story, Madlain. For everyone watching, Vida and I call Madlain the kickboxing nun because it's so cool when we look at old pictures of you in your habit, in your nun's outfit, and then just tearing up the pads in the gym. It's like two different lives. It's amazing.
What's funny is that it sometimes it feels very connected at the same time.
I bet.
Because it's definitely, and for anyone afraid of trying something new, that first day when I was with Aaron, I remember thinking, I'm never coming back here. Like I remember calculating how much they're going to have to take out of my account before I wasn't embarrassed to go and cancel my membership. It was a complete thought process. And at the very end, he asked me, or he said, he's like, "So I'll see you next week." And I said, "Yes." And I don't lie. And so I had to show up again. And that's what started it.
Amazing. So such a cool story. I love it, Madlain, and very inspirational. So let's go into more specifics about your wellness and weight loss journey. So if you don't mind me asking, where were you at your heaviest body weight?
At my heaviest, I was at 306 pounds.
306. And what's your current weight?
As of my last weigh-in, I was 217.
217. So that's like what, 89 pounds down, is it?
Yeah.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's like another person.
Yeah. And that's just amazing. And when we met, so when we had that first conversation, where were you at that point? Mentally, physically, how was that going?
So I not in a good place. I had just torn. 2019 was a rough year for many reasons. As I mentioned, the convent closed for one. And then in August, I had a cardiac episode and I was rushed to the hospital, and it was extremely traumatic. Essentially, my heart rate jumped from a resting up to like 180, 180s in the 180s within seconds. And they couldn't, it took them about 8 hours to get me stable enough to admit me to the hospital to see what was going on. It went back to normal and it's been fine since, but I had that in August. And then I was training again and I tore my calf in December. And I had to not train for at least 10 to 12 weeks. And when I found you guys, I was about 3 weeks in to that calf injury. So I actually watched a documentary on Netflix called Game Changers. I thought it did a very good job being as unbiased as a documentary can be. It was this guy, just asking a question and finding it. And so I watched it and I was intrigued. And so as of November, I started implementing 2 vegetarian dishes a week or so into my diet. By the time, just to see how my body would react, my calf, I was extremely frustrated. I was brought back down to very low spirits. Felt like everything was kind of spiraling out of control. And, I literally couldn't walk. I couldn't do anything by myself. And so the only thing I realized I could control at that point was my diet. So I decided to go plant-based in January. And I started transitioning over. I've been fully vegan, I think, since April or May. But I started in January, and I kind of did it baby steps that way. So when you guys found me, actually, it was one of those, I remember I was at lunch at work, and I got a message from you guys just because of, I think you were just reaching out to people. And I remember thinking like, oh, I wonder what this is about. It's so funny. This is happening 2 weeks after I started, because I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
So I was there, and you guys definitely helped me clean up and answered my questions, as silly as they were. I feel like they were silly.
No such thing as a silly question. And I just wanted to touch on the fact that the first few months, like, we were doing lots of deep inner work and lots of different things going on. But as far as the scale was concerned, progress was very slow. I don't like to use the word slow, because what is slow? But as far as most people's perception, the scale wasn't moving that much in the first few months. And now you're in a stage where literally 3, 4, I think you've had some 5-pound losses. I mean, you've had some epic losses, and just consistently week on week. So do you feel a big part of that was detachment from the scale and being less fixated on it, and just enjoying your life, enjoying the boxing, nourishing your body with love, and just letting the scale look after itself?
Absolutely. I think a big part of it was I stopped expecting either the best or the worst. I just kind of used it as, you guys always talk about using it as a metric for long-term, which is great. And it's definitely the right mindset. In the moment to moment, for someone who struggled with their weight their entire life, the scale becomes everything. The scale shows you're either successful or you failed, and it's black and white, and there's no gray, which isn't reality. There's a lot of gray. It's mostly gray. Very rarely is it black and white.
Indeed.
And so it became, when I started, even with the boxing, I never started it to lose weight. Ironically, it was always meant to, I wanted to feel stronger. I wanted to feel like I had a voice, and that was a way for me to find that. It helped me find my voice, essentially. And so even with the weight loss, I feel like when I stopped caring, but it's so hard to flip a switch. It's not like that. I read a quote one time recently, actually. I don't know if you posted it or if I read it somewhere else, of you can't bully yourself into a healthy lifestyle. And that's a big part of it.
I will be using that.
Yeah, it was great. When I read that, I was like, that's so true. Because a lot of, even with the yo-yo diets and with whatever someone's struggling with, it all becomes about the scale. And so when it was kind of like once a week, or, I do it once a week with you guys now, just for the sake of metrics. But, and I still find myself in that, hoping.
It's always a work in progress, isn't it? Yeah,
for sure. But I definitely do think it's more of what makes you feel good. And for me, I feel, and not even just, I feel like even good's relative. For me, it was what makes me feel strong, and what makes me feel powerful, and what makes me feel fierce. And because of how hard I've been training, I noticed if I eat things that aren't as good for me, I don't feel good when I'm training.
Yeah.
And that's my whole thing. I want to feel good. I want to feel strong.
We always say it feels good to feel good. So once you start nourishing your body with love and feeling awesome, it gets addictive. You want that feeling. Yeah. You don't want to, we are what we eat. You don't want to go back to eating rubbish and feeling rubbish.
Yeah. And I've also noticed, sorry to cut you off, I also noticed I heal quicker now that I eat cleaner. So we joke, and you and Vida tell me all the time to not say this out loud, of like, I'm accident prone sometimes. Like, I broke my toe walking in my house 6.5 weeks ago. Like, it just happens. Things like this happen to me. But I noticed I heal a lot faster when I eat things that are actually nutrient dense, like things that are actually good for your body, the things your body needs to repair itself.
To replenish and repair itself. It makes sense, right? Absolutely. And what have you found has been the most helpful thing with online coaching and working with us and our program?
For sure, accountability,
Mhm.
and community. And I think a lot of people don't have a community. And I
The
think that's
commu-
where, yeah, I think that's where it can fail. And even, and it
ah,
helps, like I just hearing someone else share their story, I think is very powerful. Um,
exactly. Hence
and
why we're doing these. Like,
yes,
it's so powerful and inspirational for other people to hear.
yeah,
Um,
just the reality of like, you're not alone.
yeah,
You're not, it's one thing to say like, oh, everyone struggles with this, and to think that, but it's another to say, yeah, I've struggled with depression and anxiety for years, and this is how it's helped me. Maybe if you want to try it, it can help you, but if not,
mm,
that's fine too. And
mm,
um, I think community is important, not just, and you guys have done a really great job developing an online community and an online presence, and just, an accountability to where if I was feeling a certain way, and I've done this before to you guys, I'll do a voice recording, and I'm usually, in tears, frustrated or whatever. And it's just that sense of connection that like someone
you'll get one of
cares.
Vida's 20-minute voice notes back.
They're
I
so
managed I
helpful.
managed like 2 minutes before my thumb starts cramping, but she's got superhuman Lithuanian thumbs. Um, but
Yeah.
so yeah, no, that's really nice you picked up on that, Madlain, because we're all about community. We don't want our clients just to connect with us. We want our clients and our community just to interact and engage with each other, because with wellness and weight loss, people often look for quick fixes and a secret sauce. But the reality is, you can Google free meal plans, you can YouTube workouts. The power and the specialness comes from people and community, and all, showing our vulnerabilities and all growing together and being on the same path as other like-minded people. I think this is where this is it, and this is what's so powerful. So what would you advise someone perhaps in need of help, where you were, mentally and physically when we spoke? What would you advise them in terms of getting help and seeking advice with online coaching or another professional?
um, a couple things. I have a couple pieces of advice. The first one would be, um, find a community, find someone, and that community does. And but I mean community, it's not even necessarily like a numbers game. Find a person that you really trust, that you feel like you could really be yourself around. Find people that help encourage you and that help bring the best out of you, and you'll find them when you don't expect it.
Mhm.
In addition to you guys, I have my community that I train with. We have Aaron, I have some of the people I train with as well here, which is also helpful because I have them pushing me on those days that I show up, but I don't feel like working out. I have them pushing me on even with when it comes to Madeline's meals and to cooking and things like that. I have them recommending things and being very honest with it. But finding a community is key. Finding one that not even just to like call you out, because I feel like with accountability sometimes we think of it as like this negative, like they're gonna straighten you out, and I don't think that's what it is. I think
No.
part of it, not completely at least, I think you also need people that will lift you up, that when you are having a bad day or when you are feeling a certain way, they can kind of lean in with compassion and empathy and help sit with you for a minute, but help bring you out of that. And I think
100%.
that's huge. I really think that's a make or break for people in just life, not even just the weight loss journey, that's just life.
We
Um,
need that connection.
yeah. And you need people that are not, you need to feel safe, and you
Yeah.
need to find people that help you feel safe. And so I for sure find a community. I also think another piece of advice would be to have a little bit of grace with yourself in the process. We're still learning as we go, and this is coming. And you know better than anyone, Scott. I am preaching to the choir for this. Um, I think remembering that you're human is very helpful. Have a little bit of grace with yourself. You are going to have days you train as well. You are going to have days you don't feel like doing it. You are going to have days you don't feel like eating clean. You're going to fall into your old coping mechanisms. But it gets better if you show up. It's not
Yeah.
going to get better on its own. You're going to kind of fall deeper if you just sit there. But if you show up and at least do what you're supposed to do, it will get better.
100%. And the way we sorry to interrupt, Madlain, the way we show up for others is the way we show up for ourselves as well. And that's why, again, that community atmosphere is so powerful, because we're all just showing up for each other, lifting each other up. And in doing that, we're helping ourselves as well.
For sure. And then the last thing is a story that I was told one time while I was in the convent that I loved. There's this man who was being made a king, and he asked, the sign of his kingship was this ring he wore in his hand. And he asked the jeweler making it to engrave something on it that will make him happy when he's sad and sad when he's happy. And so the jeweler engraved, "This too shall pass."
Love it.
So when it comes to stuff that we struggle with, whether it's, because I feel like for me, the physical kind of clicked when I took care of the mental and the emotional and the spiritual. My biggest problem throughout my life has been I kind of separated everything. Like if I get my physical down, everything else will fall into place. But we're not that. We're body, mind, spirit. We're complex beings. We're not just whatever. And so it's one of those, you have to work on everything at the same time. That sounds exhausting, but that's what I've noticed, at least in myself, that's the only way it's clicked.
Yeah, 100%. And it's not exhausting. What's exhausting is just working on the physical and only getting temporary results and going round and round and not getting sustained. That's exhausting. It's much better to go deep and do that deep inner work and all that necessary self-development to get the sustainable results. So that's amazing. And
it's your body's a physical manifestation of what's going on internally. So if you are, and it makes sense, even if you're having a bad day or whatever you're going to classify as a bad day, you're going to want to eat like garbage, feel like garbage, because your mindset is that. So it's all connected. And so for me, it kind of took this realization of oh my gosh, my weight loss and what I'm struggling with isn't a physical issue. It's inner work that I need to focus on. And that's what we focused on a lot of the time. And it's helped that I have these outlets where I'm kicking pads and I'm punching and mitts and things like that. That's helpful, but that might not be for everybody. You have to find what works.
Amazing, Madlain. So we're going to wrap things up. We could talk for hours about your journey, but I know with attention spans on social media these days are a bit shorter. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing with everyone your journey. Everyone watching, Madlain is so forthcoming and transparent. If you've got any questions about anything, I'm sure she wouldn't mind reaching out to her. Send her a DM. She'll be tagged in this video. Madlain's also got her own nutrition company now, Madlain's Meals. So for anyone living in the San Diego area that wants delicious meal prep, we highly recommend it. And reach out to her as well. She's doing amazing things. And just thank you for everything, Madlain. Super excited about the rest of your journey. We're still just getting started, and you're finding your flow, and just evolving so much in every way. So it's great to see and be a part of it.
Thank you, and thank Vida. Thank you to Vida as well for everything you guys have done, because I really would not be here where I'm at without you guys, and I'm very, very appreciative of that. And I know I'm not alone in that. I'm one voice in your community, but the empowerment that's felt is a very real thing. And I think that's the biggest thing for people. We need to feel empowered that we can do this. And that's something that you and Vida have helped me. I said this before, you guys have helped me dream again. And I'm actually pursuing that, which is crazy for me, but crazy for me to think about. Because a year ago, I wasn't here. A year ago, I was very much stuck. And so I appreciate you guys very much.
Likewise, Madlain, you gave me goosebumps. That's the biggest compliment ever. You taught me how to dream again, and just so grateful to be in a position to do that. And we love our community, and we wouldn't be here without you or all of our other clients or community members. So thank you for everything as well. And we'll speak soon.
All right.
Okay.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.